Hey y'all, my name's Leah Lauder and I'm your favorite megachurch cult survivor turned social justice activist, and I was in what I thought was a megachurch for 18 years, but it turned out to be a cult. Anyway, I've been doing a bit of cult psycho ed around what happens when you leave, cult tactics that they use, cult characteristics, but I wanted a way to really show people to understand the tactics that they use in real time through a model. So here I have created, and I'm really, really proud of this, the model of fear used by high control groups by Leah Lauder. So now we're going to delve into what and how the cult uses fear tactics to manipulate, control your mind, indoctrinate you, and keep you trapped in the self-sealing system through the thought reform program. So here we go. So let's start off with the indoctrination. So the indoctrination is usually governed by a thought reform program and a transcendent belief system. So when we're looking at the thought reform program, it's usually got some sort of foundational basis of loyalty to the highest authority, because they need to change the way you think. They need to change the way you behave. They need to change the way you act. So they do that through social conformity as well. And that's why I say that you can tell that it's a cult through the behavior of the members, not the pastor. And that's the infatuation, the worship, the idolization of the pastor. Do you see how this is all linked to the brain and the psyche and the mind control? And then once they've got you trapped and you're depending on them for absolutely everything to make decisions, even decisions where to study, who to marry, where to live, what clothes to wear, you form a codependent trauma bond with them, okay? The main way that they keep people controlled through fear, we discussed, is through false prophecies. So when these pastors give false prophecies, and they're usually, fearful, or something bad's going to happen, or sow this seed to get a baby, or sow this seed to cancel out all of this debt and this financial attacks that you're having. So everything is over spiritualized, but it's done through false prophecies and curses with the fear of going to hell. Do you see how we've got the false prophecies governed through the false doctrine, which is psychological abuse? And then they're using fear, telling you that you're going to go to hell through curses. So that ignites the paranoia. And this is all done under the brain, psyche, and mind control. So people are fearful that they'll be shunned by the cult, excommunicated. Then they create this, the big bad world, and be in the world, but not of the world. Do not be conformed to the world. They just do a lot of that, a lot of fear. They say, oh, look at what the world did to you when you came into the church cult, and now look at you. They do a lot of that, which is us versus them. And that creates a lot of conflict with, just anyone external of the cult, because you can't listen to worldly music. You can't go to clubs. You can't go to bars. You can't go anywhere that involves popular culture. So that's what keeps you in the self-sealing system. And that's why they're always teething from the world. Do you know what I mean? Because they have to make their events and the things that they do and they put on seem, appeal to people in the world, especially young people. So another fear that people have when they want to leave a cult is that God will not be happy with you. It seems like something so simple, but you have to remember that when people join these cults, they're lovers of God. Do you get what I'm trying to say? All you're trying to do is make God happy and serve the Lord. Well, that's what you think you're doing anyway. This is a huge one, emotional manipulation. They create this fake spiritual family. The pastor's your spiritual daddy. Your leader's your big bro, your big sis. Do you know what I mean? They're really, really good with this. So when you leave, they bring in all of these emotional manipulation. They come in with all of this false doctrine and cult jargon, saying, oh, you're forsaking the fellowship of the saints, koinonia, Christ is the head of the church. You're forsaking Christ. That's what they do. And it's all through emotional manipulation. A lot of the time with these church cults, they pull on your emotional heartstrings. That's why you give so much of your time, so much of your money, just so much of yourself. So then another fear tactic that they use is this conviction thing. Oh, you will feel the conviction of the Lord. But really it's just guilt. It's just guilt and condemnation. But in cults, they're really good at changing the meaning of things to other things. Do you get what I'm saying? So you'll be thinking that you're convicted, but really you're just feeling guilty when you're out, you're having a little drink with your friends in a shisha club. You'll be feeling guilty because the cult said that you shouldn't listen to world worldly music and the cult said that you shouldn't be outside. Then you've got that generalized, very black and white type of thinking in the cult. And they use this because they want to take away your ability to critically think and analyze and reflect. And so everything's just like whatever the cult leader says, whatever the cult's doing, whatever the cult's putting on, that's what you're doing up. And another way that they do this is like through the ministries as well. The ministry show their very black and white thinking. It's like, okay, you can be in the choir, you can be dancing stars, you can be puppet stars, you can be film stars, you can be dancing stars. They might have a rap stars. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, there's nothing else outside of that. You can't, the reason why they only have the same ministries is like a blueprint. People can't critically think in there. They can't make suggestions. They can't bring in new ideas. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So it's like, even if you're not a singer, you're going to be forced. It's going to be by force. By force, you're going into that choir. By force, by force. You're thinking that it's by force. Is it by force? But they're using guilt, conviction, fear, false prophecies, psychological tactics through curses. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it all feeds into that vibe that you don't want to be there, but you can't quite put your finger on it. This is what it is. It's the fear of unknown. You know, some people, that's all they've known. Do you know what I mean? They were born into the cult. People like me that were in there for 18 years. People have been there for 20 years, 30 years, got their whole family in there. You're leaving to go where? With who? All your friends are in there, 20 years worth of making friends. And you know how it is with West Africans. They're very like together. They're very big on their community culture. You know, a lot of the people that are there, like the older generation, they're there just for the social. They know it's a cult. They know what Dag's about. They know about the abuse that's been swept under the carpet. But they're in there because they got kids that are in there that are like 14, 16, 18. You know, their kids have grown up in there. They think that it's the right thing that they're doing for their children. They say things like, oh, you know, I don't want to, all the churches are the same. I'm jumping from the pan into the fire. If I leave, the pan into the fire. So they're very indoctrinated. They're indoctrinated by YT colonialist mindsets, patriarchy, internalized misogyny, on top of now the cult culture that they're bringing into it, on top of the toxic West African culture. Yeah. So there's a lot of onions that they have to unpack there, y'all.